Welcome back to the third annual DevOps Virtual Summit brought to you by CA Technologies. My name is Paul Kizikevich, and I'm the Vice President of North America Sales for the Continuous Delivery business at CA. You've just heard from two industry thought leaders on the latest research and trends around Agile and DevOps. Over the next 3 hours, you're going to hear from executive change agents that are implementing these practices in their business and driving significant outcomes. It's going to be an awesome discussion. Let's go ahead and get started. It's my pleasure to introduce our first guest, Sylvia Prickle, who is Managing Director at United Airlines. Sylvia is an executive with a proven track record in leading, managing, and delivering transformational initiatives that are aligned to critical revenue and efficiency targets. She's responsible for enterprise quality and release management, with accountability for test automation, continuous delivery, and release governance. Her depth and breadth of experience comes from leading several technology teams in application development, operations, program management, disaster recovery, and the Office of the CIO. Sylvia is an IT service management certified professional, a Six Sigma black belt, and has co-authored 3 books for IT professionals. Sylvia, thank you so much for being here today. We're very excited about the information you're going to share about the incredible journey at United.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. I really appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, talk to you a little bit about our journey at United Airlines these last 12, 13 months. My hope is that you walk away with a few golden nuggets of wisdom after sharing with you this experience, and if anything, maybe even be somewhat entertained by this presentation. I started taking over responsibility of enterprise quality assurance and release management in January 2016. And as any good leader would do, my first responsibility was to get to learn the operation, get to know the staff, and talk to my internal, external stakeholders. Shortly after assuming responsibility for this functional group, I was invited to a steering committee meeting to talk about progress of a very large, highly visible application development initiative. And not having a lot of background experience, I attended the meeting and walked into this. So, mind you, the person walking into the meeting is supposed to be me. Now, I hope none of you think that resembles me, but it's the best characterization I could find. The folks sitting around the table were executives representing different business units. And as you can see by their body language, they weren't very happy campers. So I knew walking into this steering committee meeting about a program that I wasn't very familiar with, but I knew enough to know this was not going to be a very good meeting. And as a result of listening to the program manager provide an update, this is what she shared. I'm sure many of you have seen this in the past. We were behind schedule, we were over budget, and our quality sucked. I mean, that's really the short of it. And of course, when they came to the topic of quality, all heads turned to the new kid in the room, that was me. And they expressed to me all of the pains and the issues of this particular program and why it was off track. And I just listened intently. But then out of the corner of my eye, I see this finger coming out, pointing at me, and some of you may recognize. It was a gesture by one of the VPs who said to me, "Sylvia, you own test, you own the QA environments, you need to fix this." And at that point, you can hear a pin drop in the room, but what am I going to say, right? I said, absolutely. We will work to fix these issues and get this program back on track. So that was my first introduction into EQRM. So what was my plan to fix these issues and help get this program back on track? To be honest with you, because I was brand new in this role, I really didn't know. Right? I really didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, this program was in dire straits. There's a lot of visible eyes on this. It's recognized by senior leaders, a lot of people banking on this going into production, and now I felt like I had the world on my shoulders. I really didn't know what to do. But I was going to give it my best shot. So I put my program management hat on and my very pragmatic way of doing things, and I came up with a step-by-step approach. And what I'm about to share with you is exactly what the journey that I went through in the next few months. The first step was to assess current state. I'm sure this is not rocket science, right? Many of you know that in order to understand what you need to improve on, you have to understand where you're at. And the laundry list was pretty long. We had a lot of challenges in this space. This particular functional group didn't get a lot of attention, and it absolutely showed by the fact that they just weren't prepared to take on a program of this magnitude and do it well and do it successfully. The graphic representation on the screen is really that was the current state in that at that time as to the level of testing that was performed. And as you can see, it was very manual and very rudimentary. We had very limited test coverage, as Jeff had mentioned earlier. Test coverage is important from a quality perspective. Everything was done manually, so it took an awful long time to get testing completed. We had limited to non-existent, non-functional or low-in-performance testing. No security scanning, low velocity, no agility. All of these issues came to surface, and consequently, not a lot of credibility and not a lot of confidence in EQRM. Well, rightfully so. We weren't able to deliver to their expectations. So now I saw the current state, and I knew we had a lot of work to do and a very short time to get there. So the next step, the EQRM organization is about 400 large, and I got resources spread around the world. So I really needed to rally the troops towards a common goal. And I felt that was very important to get everybody focused in the right direction and rowing together. And one way to do that is by setting a very clear mission statement or objective. And that's what we did. We created a mission statement that starts like establish an end-to-end best practices testing solution supported by complementary tools that integrates, automates, and stabilizes the application delivery pipeline. So very short, very concise, very prescriptive in terms of what success looks like. What's our end state goal? And once you get to that end state goal and you paint that picture for everybody in your team, you then can pave a pathway to get there. And so now I got all the troops rallied, I got everybody focused. Now we're painting the path to get there. The next step was to build a framework. Now, when you're in a crisis situation and you're trying to problem solve something, there's two approaches to take. One is you take the Band-Aid approach, right? You figure out the shortest way to solve the problem just to get the problem resolved. But that typically isn't sustainable. My approach was more of a permanent best practices approach. Since I was investing time, money, and resources in this anyway, I thought I'd try to create a foundation that was very stable and a framework that we can leverage over and over again, since I had a feeling we had other application portfolios probably in a similar state. So we invested in laying out a solid framework consisting of 5 capabilities, a lot of collaboration, a lot of negotiation with our application development partners as well as with our operations partner. It took all 3 groups to rally together to come up with this framework. And this is where we engaged with CA. We leveraged CA release automation, and more importantly, we really leveraged the partnership that CA brought to the table. I explained to them our situation, I explained the sense of urgency, and they came to our call, provided the tools, but also provided the partnership and the resources to help us install this and implement it as quickly as possible. So kudos to CA for really partnering with us and getting this done. So in addition to just building out the framework, we also launched several other work streams to address some of the other deficiencies like automation of test scripts, test data management, environment 24/7 support, et cetera, et cetera. So there was actually 5 work streams we launched in parallel along with building out the release automation framework. The next step was just continuously improved, right? So I had to show continuous progress because remember, I'm I'm addressing a serious concern with this particular application release that was scheduled to go live in 2016. So I had to make sure that I was showing continuous improvement in our ability to test that application. And I did. I reported month over month. I reported where we were, and the steering committee was able to actually see the value, continuous improvements we were making, and the program, in essence, was getting back on track. Over the 8-month journey, this is kind of where we are today. If you remember that graphic from the first slide I showed you, it was pretty rudimentary, very, very high-level testing. This is where we are today. We do multiple code-based deployments to QA on a daily basis. We smoke test and quality test the dev builds before they go into QA, and then we conduct a bunch of regression tests in QA, and that cycle repeats between application development and EQRM. And then on Fridays, we promote the code to pre-production. We do another series of very highly comprehensive end-to-end regression testing. We also do automated security testing, security scanning, and then non-functional load and performance testing. And if it passes all of that, then we move it into production, where we do another series of validation tests to make sure that it is actually working in production as designed. And this cycle we have now implemented since October, November of last year, and it has proven to be very, very successful. And of course, the underpinning product that helps us enable this delivery pipeline is CARA. So you'll see that everything's automated from end to end, from dev stage to production. Now, that's where we ended up in October and November of last year. Let me show you the results of that effort. This is the first initiative where I've seen results beyond my expectations, to be quite honest, in a very short period of time. We've seen improved quality, we've improved velocity, we've enabled agility, we've definitely stabilized the environments, and to top it off, unexpectedly, quite frankly, we even gained some efficiencies in a return on our environment. We moved from monthly releases to weekly releases, and now prepared to really do on-demand releases, whether the business wants to or not. So we're no longer the long pole in the tent, which is a great place to be. In terms of efficiencies, because we automated all our regression tests, as Jeff had mentioned before, every time you run that automation suite, you really start to see efficiencies from labor saved and time saved from not having to do it manually. So the more times you run that regression suite, the more you're generating revenue or return on that investment. So in essence, we wound up saving a lot of labor hours, and we saved some money on the site, which really wasn't an expected outcome, but a welcomed one anyway. Test coverage, again, another critical success factor. Test coverage and code coverage. So test coverage is the ability to have tests that cover the entire span of the code, and then code coverage is to make sure you're really covering the entire application. This is a reflection of code coverage. Obviously, initially we had very low code coverage, which is why we had high defect leakages. Since we automated all of our regression tests, we now have a much higher code coverage. 75, 85, somewhere in between is really the optimal place to be before you get to the point of diminishing returns. So we feel we're really in a good place with code coverage. And then, of course, in terms of velocity, where it took 40 hours manually to do a regression test, and then a regression test. We're now under an hour. We actually did full regression test last weekend, and we were able to complete it in 30 minutes, which means now that we could do end-to-end full code-based regression testing, functional testing, non-functional testing, and security scanning with every single code build, which really makes for a very high-level quality output for this particular product. And if that's not proof enough, this is kind of undeniable, irrefutable evidence. What I did is I created, and I just pulled this up last week, as a matter of fact, and to be honest with you, it kind of surprised me too. I pulled up all our production outages and created a trend line. And production outages in terms of severity 1 being a system failure, right? And then severity 2 and severity 3 incidents, functionality, something's not working within the application and production. And you can see that we have a significant decline in outages, production outages in the month of November of last year, December, January this year, February, and it's still trending very, very low in March. I personally believe that it is with implementation of that framework, the increase in code quality and code coverage, and the testing, rigorous testing that we put in place has absolutely improved the quality of output of our application and absolutely contributes to this statistic. So really, really happy as to the results, and like I said, phenomenal and even exceeded my expectations. And it's actually been a pleasant surprise for many others, so much so that we are now taking this framework and replicating it across other portfolios, which was actually the intent to begin with in terms of building a very, very solid framework. And what we're doing is continuously improving by adding a little bit more complexity in this particular implementation. And if you see here, it's not just the UI that we're automating and leveraging CARA for, but it's also now we're going deeper in the stack and incorporating middle tier and database. So we got Couchbase in there, we got TIBCO in there, all leveraging the same framework and CARA to help with the automated deployments. So this portfolio will actually reap more benefit than the portfolio we implemented before. In addition, we are piloting service virtualization to help reduce our dependency on the services, which would really, again, enable acceleration of our testing life cycle. And then, as Jeff mentioned earlier, we're implementing CDE, which is the zero-touch deployment edition that sits on top of release automation. So a lot more to come above and beyond what we just completed, which is really kind of exciting. Takeaways. I wanted to share with you a couple takeaways in terms of how we address this. I do believe that setting up an end-state vision, getting your troops to rally towards a common goal is very, very important, in fact, a critical success factor. Establishing multiple work streams, that helps to accelerate getting this initiative in place as quickly as possible. And then addressing kind of all the pain points, not just one, right? CARA provides significant value, but you have to kind of look at the whole ecosystem and address some of the other deficiencies as well so it can keep up with progress. Keep all the teams motivated and empowered. I think you heard before, happy employees make for productive employees. I really do believe that. I know you hear that time and time again. Success, celebrate successes. I do believe it's important. I do believe they feel like, your employees need to feel like they're on a winning team and they're actually doing something that's of value. And as a result of that, they wind up becoming much more productive. And they feel empowered, and it's just amazing what they can do for you. As a leader, my job, now that they understood what the end state outcome was, and you kind of empowered them to do what they were good at, my job was to be a border guard. It's a concept I learned several years back. A border guard really kind of what a border guard does is you keep the team focused and you keep all the distractions and all the noise and all the context switching and all the priorities away from them. People can't we can have this debate forever, but multitasking is not good. Context switching is not good. Statistically, it shows that it really reduces productivity. And in fact, it causes for lack of, it causes more quality issues because people make mistakes because they're jumping from priority to priority. My job as a border guard was to keep all that noise out, keep them focused on the mission at hand, and recognize that the good work that they invest in can be replicated very quickly across all the other portfolios that are really struggling and looking for attention. And then, again, 80-20 rule, continuously improve, build something solid, and just as you get better, as the team gets more knowledge and understanding and practice, everything's going to just kind of build from there. Last but not least, I know you heard a lot about DevOps, CI/CD, test-driven development, shift left, shift right. I love all those terms. You didn't hear me mention any of them in this presentation. And you probably wonder why, considering it's a DevOps summit. I'm going to tell you why. I was a border guard for my team and allowed my team to do what they needed to do to get the job done. I am more interested in the outcome than I am in the terminology or what they call it. So I don't know what we implemented, really, if it's DevOps, if it's CI/CD. Personally, I don't know if I really care. What I care is the outcome. I think these new shiny objects that come to the table, they're important, right? We are evolving as a technological industry into a different way of working, and maybe that's DevOps, or maybe it's CI and Agile. It's a combination of everything. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the terminology. I'd rather just spend time on changing the culture and changing the way we work, which leads me to cultural transformation. A huge topic of conversation. Again, culture can't be dictated. You can't just automatically say, I will lead to change, right? It has to be something that's organic. People have to believe it. It has to have roots in order for it to be sustainable. And success breeds success. So with this effort, it's starting to kind of reproduce and replicate on its own. And the organization and the cultural changes are organic and, in my mind, sustainable. So within the next year or two, I wouldn't be surprised if the entire IT division at United Airlines is what you call DevOps. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Outstanding. Sylvia, that was amazing. Thank you for the insights. I mean, just to hear the story of the challenges you faced, the way you attack those problems pragmatically, and the results you were able to deliver, and then to take those results and carry them into other parts of the business is phenomenal.
It's been an exciting journey, very exciting journey.
Thank you for sharing that.